Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit short. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. I always do. Good. This is just really.
You're on number 4.
This is my 4. Oh, geez. That doesn't count all the other stuff. Well, we're pretty close right now. We have Phil and we have a crew of 18. We're doing Leading Yourself to Success. Leading Yourself to Success class. Okay. Boom. I'd like to call the City Council meeting for the City of Alpine for June 19th to order. It's 5:30 p.m. Just a reminder, please turn off the boxes, or put them on stun mode, whichever you prefer, just so they don't bug us and they don't bug you. We have the normal, things that we're going to go through during the agenda tonight. The mayor's out today, so you're stuck with me, and we'll work our way through the agenda. It should be an excellent meeting. We are going to go into executive session a little bit later on. As you've seen on the agenda, we have a couple of executive session items, but I would invite everyone to come back after executive session to recognize we've got some discussions that will might go on for some time, depending upon what council is off doing, but we then go back into open forum and take any action on anything that went on in executive session. So having called this meeting to order, I'd like Councilwoman Antrim to please come up and give our invocation.
I'm Nancy Antrim, a worship leader at St. James Episcopal Church. Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office here in Alpine the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Bless our city manager, our mayor pro tem, and our absent mayor, and our council members, and give to them patience in dealing with each other and our community. Bless our finance director and guide her in her duties to safeguard our city's finances. Bless our office staff that they may fulfill their duties to the best of their abilities. Bless all those who work for Alpine, helping to make it a safe and pleasant place to live. And bless our citizens with peace and security. Amen. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Cynthia, can you please give us an update on determination of form or proof of notice of the city council meeting?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. We do have quorum, and Mayor Ramos has an excused absence. And the notice was posted at 11 a.m. on June 15th, 2018.
Thank you so very much. We have no presentations, recognitions, or proclamations today. We do have some reports, though, and it's my honor to have the opportunity to introduce interim CEO for the Big Bend Regional Medical Center, Rick Flores, who joins us here today. And Rick, glad you're here, glad you're at the city, and in the hospital district feels such an important part. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and what's going on? The podium is there if you like, and there's a mic there if you like, or you can, whatever's convenient for you.
Okay, well, I won't, oh, there's a mic right here. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens. Thank you all for having me. My name's Rick Flores, originally out of El Paso. Recruited to Covenant Health System up in Lubbock in 1999. As my career expanded, 10 years after Covenant, I ended up as a assistant CEO at Scenic Mountain, our sister hospital in Big Spring. I was very fortunate to get tapped to come down here to see what we can do down here at this organization. The organization is very stable, financially, clinically. The whole professional environment is on tack. It's on course. We're in the right direction. We have many things that we're looking at. This is week 7, and I've shared with many that my first week we had a complete blackout in the city. The second week we had a tornado touchdown. So I didn't know if they were trying to warn me, or coach me, or test me. Well, I'm still here. Things are going well. I've met with several of these people, and I'm very fortunate, or I should say honored, to be here in your community. It's an amazing community. I came here many years ago to being from El Paso, trying to see what the little community was about. A lot of arts, a lot of good people. It's a pretty good Mexican food. So at this point, we're in the right direction for the hospital. I don't have much to say, but I really just came out to introduce myself. So you can put a name to a face. One of the things our marketing director has been asked to do by me is to reach out to the community, because what we're looking for is, challenges we may have had in the future, in the past, which I can't fix all of them, but I can extend an olive branch for many businesses that we've had relationships with and we've lost. The second thing is we want the community to share with us their concerns, opinions, opportunities. One of the things I hear a lot of is we need more specialists. One of the benefits of being a sister hospital with Cedar Mountain over in Big Spring is that we can identify some professionals that we might be able to split services with. They might work up in Scenic Mountain, a couple weeks a month, and a couple of weeks down here, which expands our services. Those things that we're looking for. Staffing is excellent. We've got a great medical staff. I've got another physician coming in. I brought her in. Her name is Dr. Harrington. I don't know if any of you remember her, but she was here for a while, and she's returning, and our target start date for her is August 1st. We are looking at enhancing our orthopedics. I have worked with Mr. Mester over at Sul Ross University. I've met with Coach Fellows at Alpine, and he educated me on what that little thing on the A means. It's a running aid. Who knew that? Anyone know that? No? Okay. There's some education for you. At this time, like I said, I just wanted to come out, introduce myself, and share with you the community, that the hospital is in good standing, and our goal is to sustain that. That's all I've got to say, Mayor.
Great. Anyone have any questions for it?
No, that was easy.
So I have a quick one. So yes, you're kind of interim. You got this 90-day window you're here.
Yes, sir.
Give any perspective about that?
Yes, I've been asked to come down, identify the situation, give some perspective to it, and ask if I would enjoy living here. Well, I may be the interim CEO or senior CEO at the hospital. I'm the same way at home, but Mama's the CFO, and I brought her down last week. And I'll tell you what, she loves your community. And there's one little store, the Books and Something Bees, right next to Riata. She's a librarian. She's the head librarian with Lubbock Independent School District. So that's the first thing that caught her attention. And she found a historic house that she really liked right behind your library. And did you know your library is a well-known library in the state of Texas? It's very impressive. So whoever's in charge of that librarian there, kudos. And to your community for having such a good library. That matters. That's all I got. Anything?
So you're trying us out, and we're trying you out, and we hope you stay.
More you guys trying me out than me trying you out. Was that a good answer, President? Okay. Listen, I can't thank you enough. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You guys have embraced me. The hospital's embraced me. The energy's there again. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with, you know, the marketing, the politics and everything. But there's three things I shared with the hospital. Three things that's going to sustain that hospital. It's going to be the community, because we got to gain that trust and belief again. I've got to have the staff. They've got to believe in the vision, which is providing for the community, and the medical staff. They've got to believe in their hospital, and they'll deliver the services that we need them to. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. City manager, all's in your court.
Didn't bring my tennis shoes. Good evening, council and residents of Alpine. Thank you so much for being here tonight. First up, I want to provide an update on the recycling center and the progress with continued discussions with the county and with TDS. We met, the Judge Cano and I met with several of the executives from TDS, discussed the situation. They shared with us some of their challenges at the recycling center. We asked permission to kind of conduct a pilot to develop some baseline numbers for the recycling center in order for the county to have some kind of foundation in assisting us in providing financial support in the future for that recycling center. And I heard from TDS late Friday that they are going to allow us to open the center back up to all the residents in the county. So as of today, there is a sign-in sheet just so that we can start tracking numbers of users as well as the types of material being delivered to the recycling center. I think the best part of this is that, you know, TDS really wants to see the recycling center continue. Understanding the economy and the market when it comes to recyclables, they're willing to absorb some of that cost on their end through the summer so that we can develop those baseline numbers. And I really appreciate that they allowed us to do that and kind of open that up from our contract of services so that, I mean, the last thing we wanted to do is do something that would be in breach of that contract and then totally just jeopardize the recycling center in the future. What you have before you, what I've provided to you, is a letter that I had prepared to go to the newspapers. The Big Bend Gazette is going to publish it. It's going to address some of the rumors in there. The Alpine Avalanche group, we'll probably come back and ask for, where's Megan? See if Megan can squeeze some money out so we can pay for it because of the size, we would have to pay for it in their paper. I think what's key in there is on the second page under those bullet points, moving forward into 2019, understanding what the true cost is to operate both sides of the recycling center. Even though it's in one location, it's actually two different centers, the one that the city funds and the one that TDS funds. And we need to really look at what that true cost is in operating it and maintaining it as far as equipment and repairs, not just manpower out there at the recycling center. We need to look at the actual condition for the employees out there and their pay scales so that we can stop the turnover and really build some long-term knowledge of how the recycling center operates out there. We need to look at the community, specifically Keep Alpine Beautiful, just to be more active in the public awareness arena. One of the issues has been kind of illegal dumping. People coming by when the center's closed and dumping material that should not be there at the gate, which means that staff then has to take time to pick that up, have someone else haul it off, and then we have to pay for it to be landfilled if it's not appropriate for the recycling center, as well as contaminants in the recyclables, people not properly sorting the recyclables in the bins, and just kind of taking everything and throwing it into whatever's available. That creates a problem on the processing side. It delays the processing side as well as takes up space. There's a minimum contaminant level that's allowed in recyclables. If a load exceeds that, it has to be landfilled. They can't bale it and save it to be recycled. So using Keep Alpine Beautiful to do some of that, as well as assist the city in finding some volunteers to help out on the weekends or even during the week. And we need to determine whether or not there's a need for user fees to cover all of the costs. We usually use funds from the sanitation. There's a little bit every year that's kind of left over. This year, we're not looking at having anything left over, and so we're going to be starting with 0 this year. And then to look at the grants again, there was some issues with grants in the prior 2 years, either projects not being completed in time, projects overrunning the initial budget. And in one case, we actually returned a portion of the funding because it did not fit what we wanted to do with it here. So looking at the next fiscal year, those are the areas that we really need to focus on to ensure long-term sustainability of that center. But for the time being, we're going to try this pilot, take some sign-ins, try to determine some of those numbers, and the county will be setting aside some additional funds to help us keep that recycling center open for the whole county. Any questions?
Just to paraphrase, the center is now open, will be open how many hours a week?
It's still only open Tuesday through Saturday.
Tuesday, I mean, 8 to 8 hours.
It is open, yeah, 8 to 5 during the weekdays and then till noon on Saturday.
I do. I'm wondering if we could get maybe some of the trustees or people like the district county go to maybe do some volunteer work at the center. Is that possible?
From the probation office?
Oh, no,
Jail.
from the jail.
From the jail. Oh, I don't know. I'd have to talk with the county. I've reached out to them several times through the probation office. But I guess maybe talking directly to the sheriff, I may be able to see if we can get some help out there.
Okay. Yeah, because I know there's some issues over at the cemetery with some cows getting through, and Ronnie had offered to have inmates help repair the fence.
Yeah.
So that might be an option there. Jessica, you talked about it being 2 operations, the TDS side and then the city side.
Right.
The TDS side is where cardboard, paper,
And
glass, and all that.
No, plastics.
Plastic.
Plastics, cardboard, and paper is the TDS side.
Okay.
The glass, the brush, and the scrap metal is the city side.
Okay. Does TDS have someone that's supposed to be out there, or they just go in and collect and haul it
They
away?
just go in and collect.
Okay. So operations is done by the city employees
Mhm.
to be able to worry that part, the brush and the glass and that.
Right.
Okay.
And that part, because the chipper and the glass crusher have been funded through TCQ solid waste grants, that side is available to anyone in the county because they're applied for as regional environmental sites. But the paper, cardboard, and plastics is through our contract with TDS and the residential service.
Okay. So do you envision, as things settle out, that the county would help support what goes on the paper and plastic recycling as well?
Mhm. The last page of that is kind of some numbers, just you can see staffing budget numbers for the last 2 years. Moving forward, we're looking at leaving it at the same at the 1.5. And then a projected budget, this is just kind of really quick, something that our CFO was able to put together based on some preliminary numbers. So we're looking at probably an increase of almost $24,000 next fiscal year to sustain that center. The chipper, the glass crusher, as well as paying for landfilling of illegal dumped materials, disposing of tires and the electronics is probably where your biggest expenses are going to be. We currently have probably about a trailer and a half of electronics. Last year, the market went south on electronics, and a lot of cities have been stuck warehousing electronics. There's just, they used to pay you to take them. Now we're having to pay them. And so from some of the quotes that we've received, just to get rid of what we have warehouse right now, we need about $20,000 on electronics. Tires, we've got, I know we've got more than 1,000. They've got some out at the landfill they're hanging on to for us because they pulled them out of dumpsters and things like that. So the tires, probably about another 1,200 to 1,600 tires that need to be disposed of properly as well. So those costs, the market doesn't seem to be moving fast enough to turn that around for us. And the longer they sit on pallets and they deteriorate, the less value. I was reading on there that, you know, like certain units have to be packed a certain way, and if the unit breaks in transit, then they charge you more because they have to clean it up.
I'm surprised we do oil collection. I didn't know we did that out there, because I take mine over to AutoZone, I just dump it in the back.
Yeah, they probably take it out there.
Oh, no, I think
I don't know.
yeah, they have a truck that comes and picks it up.
Yeah. So they do use it, they do collect the oil.
Okay.
I'm also surprised that we have over 1,200 tires on hand and over 2 tons on hand of electronic disposal items. What's going to happen to those?
Either we'll continue to warehouse them, or hopefully, one of the items that the judge and I have talked about is working on a partnered grant application this coming fall to TCEQ for solid waste, to see if we can get a grant to remove at least what we have on hand. And so hopefully next week we'll be talking to Cynthia and Marisa at the COG about what that timeline looks like for those applications, and if they've set any kind of maximum amounts on request, because if we take our maximum and their maximum and put it together, kind of opens it up.
Okay. Thanks.
One thought is in the past, I think Ronnie would be receptive to having used some of his jail personnel, because in the past, he's had people like after festivals in Coconut, they go, some of the guys go to the jail, go over there to help clean it up, because, you know, Hector doesn't have the staff to clean up after the 4th of July. So he's done that in the past. So
Well, and I know there's certain rules, like we couldn't have them operate the blast crusher, and we couldn't have them operate the chipper, but they might be able to help kind of check and sort some of the material in the bins to make sure that some of the mixed stuff is out. They can, you know, maybe help with the maintenance. There's a section of the fence that's down out there. There's some repairs that are needed on the little tool shed / office, and we might be able to use them out there to do things like that.
thank you.
Good. You want to dive into the auction results?
Might as well. It's just as painful. It's just as painful. So the auction we held on June 9th. You have on your sheet the list of the employees that were present the day of the auction. It wasn't. We did not get the turnout we expected, and we did not get the results as far as the sale went that we were hoping for. We set minimum bids, and during the first round, after 10 vehicles, we only had bids on maybe 2. So then we had to drop the minimum bid starting point, and so that resulted in a lot of vehicles going far less than probably what they should have. The results you'll see on the bottom there, believe it or not, the miscellaneous computer equipment went for more than a lot of the vehicles that we had, which is really unusual. The highest bid was on a Suburban that belonged to the volunteer fire department, and the lowest bid was the courtesy vehicle from the airport that went for $10.
What a deal.
She got right in, started it up, and drove out.
Yeah.
So the total of that was $5,907, which was probably a third of what we had expected to get out of it. And again, some of this goes to back to the recycle market. Scrap metal is down, and it has not picked up. Doesn't look like it's going to pick up. So a lot of the vehicles that had probably a scrap value of $2,000 or $3,000 went for $100, $50, just to get it off the lot. Some of the costs on the next page: duplicate titles, advertising for the auction, the supplies, the labor and getting all the vehicles there, taking the decals off, cleaning, making sure they didn't have any City of Alpine paperwork. So the total cost of the auction, as of the day of this report, was $7,768.
You lost $2,000.
But I think it kind of highlighted, it was really good to go through and see kind of what the challenges were for us, and what we learned from it, so that as we move into the next one, we're a little bit better prepared. One of those is that we definitely need to have the titles for all of our city vehicles in our vault and kept in our vault. We were retrieving titles from different departments. We had equipment that belonged to the City of Marfa, and the City of Marfa had equipment that belonged to us, and we had to do a title swap. So there was quite a bit of effort in just finding titles for the equipment that we had, determining where the vehicle's allocation came from. We have an asset list, and we had a vehicle that was kind of with the water department that had gone through 3 other departments. So trying to figure out where it was going to come out of as far as the asset list was challenging. Determining the overall condition of the vehicle, and the scavenging of vehicles for parts made it challenging. As soon as one department was like, hey, they've got this vehicle out there, oh, we need one of these, and then they go out and take it, rendering that vehicle no longer useful. And so that was another issue, is trying to get departments, look, just stay off. You need the part, buy the part, because we're not going to be able to recoup any money on these vehicles as they go out. And of course, we don't want to have our own salvage yard, because it just creates bigger problems for us in cleanup and maintenance long-term on these vehicles. We had some vehicles that went out there originally, were scheduled to be part of the auction, had actually been on the list since last year, and we couldn't locate them because they decided, oh, we don't want to give it up after all. And so when you get into kind of how the cities created their maintenance and their fleet turnover, it's kind of thrown it all off. And so vehicles that probably should have been auctioned 2 or 3 years ago they didn't make it this time around either. So the next time you're still going to have these 2006, 2005, I think there's still a 1999 something out there. That were on this list, and they were supposed to turn them in, and they turned them in and then changed their mind and then took them back off. So kind of getting departments to understand they're really not helping themselves by hanging on to these vehicles, because then there's no value in them after that. And so to offset future costs, they're just kind of hurting themselves in the future. So the lessons learned, system to keep the titles, to store the titles. We need to make sure that that's all done here and that they're kept in our vault accordingly. Asset management, making sure that they're assigned to the right department and the right department's driving the vehicles. We need to come up with a standard operating procedure for turning vehicles in. I want to say some of these vehicles, literally someone said, okay, we don't want this, and they took it out there, didn't bother to clean it out, didn't bother to check it, didn't take the decals off. So there was a lot of that effort that was done the week of the auction, just to get them ready, to be sold to the public, removing lights and accessories that could be reused, like utility boxes and things like that that were just left on there. So coming up with a process that says when you turn these in, it has to be turned in this condition, and not something for someone else to clean up later on. Policies, again, going back to our policies, to retain as much value in these vehicles, making sure that they do get turned over on a regular basis. Employees sometimes seem to think, I mean, I do it in my office, this is my computer, this is my desk, this is my vehicle, and they want to hang on to it because they created this personal attachment, so no one will let them go. But we have to be consistent in making sure that these vehicles do get turned over so that we retain as much value as we can in them. And again, guidelines to create a wider audience, and guidelines to allow employees to purchase. So if you have had this personal attachment to the vehicle, to allow them to buy it kind of on their own before it goes to auction. I want to call, we kind of had some little sabotage of some of them because you had employees kind of saying, hey, this one does this, and if you do that, I can fix this. And it's like, hey, zip it. That didn't help out either. I think we advertised Midland, Odessa, Presidio, Fort Stockton. There's some other options we can try in the future as well, you know, as far as like online bidding to maybe reach a wider audience. But we need to work on that. It's just another thing, you know, one of those things that for most of us, this was our first one here in Alpine, and so it was kind of a big learning opportunity for everyone.
Is there anyone willing to just haul them away?
No, because we have those two, right, that we couldn't get anybody to haul away.
No one thinks about it. Wow.
The company that was in Odessa, actually, that we picked up the scrap and stuff, actually went under.
Okay.
But we also had issues where people were parking at the old Marathon Highway, jumping the fence, and Hector and Eddie actually surprised people. They were stealing parts off of cars, and then they would run back to the old Marathon Road, jump the fence, get in their car, and go.
Which takes us to the next item, which is creating a secure location in our yard to store these vehicles when they are turned in. And then just set up an annual time period for the auction so that it just becomes a habit. Any questions on the auction?
You already bought already. This was the first auction for Alpine? No.
Well, the police department has had auctions of their impound vehicles. The last city auction was
2 years ago.
of the equipment, of cars.
City and
They repair better or about the same as 2 years ago?
the quality of vehicles was better the last time. There were more vehicles and heavy equipment this time. It was just kind of, it's a hit and miss.
So considering you had one 2 years ago and you're still auctioning a 99, a 91, a 93, a 96.
There's a bulldozer that they didn't want to get rid of.
Yeah, the streets department has it's a track dozer.
You can't even see it because the trees have grown over.
Yeah, the trees and the weeds are all growing through it, and we're like, why is that still there? Oh, because maybe one day we can find this part. And like, no.
So one of the things we think about budgeting over the summertime, well, maybe is to allocate some money, just haul some of the stuff, just get it out of here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to keep collecting it. You got all the other issues. Particularly your 91, 92, or not going to try to catch some.
Yeah. Any other questions? No.
Ms. Megan, you're up. And the subject is the monthly review and expenditure report.
So this is a report for May 2018, and it's just a quick summary of how the city's doing financially, our revenues compared to our expenditures. So for the general fund in May, the total revenues for the year was $3,476,460, which is roughly 76% of the total budget. Our sales tax for the month of May was $166,866.89. It's actually not May sales tax, it's March's. This was an increase of 3% over last year's March payment that was received in May. Our property tax total for the month, I apologize, was $24,829.72, which is only 1.5% of the budget. Total to date for ad valorem tax, the city's collected $1,565,043.79, or 95% of the budget, which is really well. Our expenditures for the month of May for the general fund was $2,332,679.47, or 51% of our total budget. At the end of May, we had completed 17 out of 26 payrolls, which is roughly 65%. Total employee expenses for the year was $1,528,253, or 60% of what is budgeted. And our total operating expenses for the general fund is $804,426.
So if you put that in perspective, Megan, general fund on the revenues, we're right on track.
Yes.
In fact, a little bit ahead because we're not yet 3/4 through the year yet. We're up on that, and expenditures were less than 3/4.
We are below. This year we've had a really high turnover in employment, which has prevented a lot of our departments from fully succeeding in what has been budgeted. As you guys are aware, we've had some issues with our street department, so paving isn't on track like it should have been. We've also had turnover in water, which is a separate fund, but street was a big one. The police department has had some turnover. ACO has had some turnover. So every time we have turnover, it causes kind of a decrease in the expenditure side because you don't have the employees to fulfill what's been budgeted, all the projects that have been listed, all the just activities. We also, June will be a little bit different because our pool is open. So you'll see a little bit of a change there because a lot of our expenditures that come with that happen, of course, during the summer months that it's open.
So just from everyone's knowledge standpoint, if we end the year with an underrun, does that money roll over and is available to continue on to the next fiscal year?
It's considered unrestricted fund balance. So it rolls into our fund balance, which then council has the option of allocating it towards general fund expenses. If they decide to do other activities with it going towards the enterprise, then it's considered a transfer, and they of course would have to go through the proper procedures and policies to do that.
But that'll be a good discussion in the August time for the budgets.
It also has to be used for one-time expenses. It can't be used for regular.
Yeah, but that's an opportunity to look at some things that we've been wanting to do just couldn't afford.
So the added, I don't want to say it's a benefit because I really wish we were 100% staffed and we can move forward with a lot of the expectations.
Yeah.
But the city has had a negative fund balance since I started. It was over $1 million when I started. We are actually in the black. So that is an added benefit. I don't want to be too much in the black. Of course, it's a positive thing, but would like to be fully staffed and have the revenue continue to grow that fund balance.
That's good.
For the water, solid waste, and sanitation. So for the water department for the month of May, they brought in 11% of the total budgeted revenues of $179,643. The expenditures for the month of May were $87,426, or just 6% of the whole budget. Solid waste, which is your sewer, brought in $67,468, or 8% of the total budgeted revenues. Their expenditures were $23,450, or 3%. Sanitation revenues for the month of May were $170,863, or 9%. And their expenses was $18,415. I do have to make a side note there. We did not receive the TDS bill in May for April's payment, so it actually reflects a lower expenditure. TDS roughly charges us $130,000 to $145,000 a month for the services that they provide for our contract. Utility billing expenditures was $9,674. Going into the airport, May was a busy month for the airport, not for the right reasons. We did have the fire department due to the fires in the Fort Davis area. Their revenues totaled $84,976 or 15% of the budget, and their expenditures totaled $117,053 or 21. The expenditures, of course, were a little bit higher due to the cost of fuel. We paid for more fuel that month than went out, but of course in June we make up that difference.
And do we get fuel for fee out of the firefighters?
Yes. So if and it's not necessarily just the firefighters, it's actually a company that is hired by them to come in and help. So if they purchase fuel through us to use for their tanks to relocate or reuse, it's a 10-cent flow fee. The gas department for the month of May, $107,315 was brought in, or 6%. Their expenditures was $111,715, or 6% of the total budget amount. Our interest in sinking, which is our INS account, which we use to pay debt. We pay debt, of course, twice a year. For the month of May, we brought in $3,395. So for the total amount budgeted, we brought in $608,346, or 100%. So the reason why it's at 100%, because if you have back taxes and you catch up or you pay for them, it may go over what we actually budgeted, because we're only basing on what is actually owed. So a little bit of a difference. Our hotel motel for the month of May, we brought in $29,498. For the total year, we brought in $473,753, or 68%. If you look at the chart, you'll notice that we actually decreased 72% from the prior year's collections. So money brought in May is actually for hotel stays in April. Yes, this still correlates with the pipeline. While they were here, they utilized a lot of our facilities, our hotels, so this does make up a difference. I believe that is it.
So if you look at the hot funding overall of $470,000, you're a little bit less than from a timing standpoint, 68%, but still not too bad on track if summer.
Correct. So like we talked previously, we're continuously monitoring where we're at revenue and expense-wise, especially to predict where we're going to be at the end of the year. So we try to do projected year ends. Roughly, we did one in March, May, and I'm actually currently working on another one to see where we're going to be at, especially with different activities coming up. You have Viva Big Ben, you've got the 4th of July, you've got the Fiesta de Barrio. You still have, I believe, one more with the downtown. Fiesta del Sol, Fiesta de Barrio. So those are all expenses that haven't been reported, but we know that they're coming up. We do the same thing with salaries. We do the same thing with operating. So we try to project at the current rate what the end will look like, so that in August, September timeframe, we can come in and ask to either adjust or amend the budget so that we are within our bounds.
Any questions from Megan? Thanks, Megan. Good job. So, leaving hot funding, Chris, it's up to you on tourism, the visitor center. What's going on?
Well, Ellen Melvin, our tourism director in the visitor center, is on vacation, or otherwise she would be presenting the visitor center numbers. So I can't give you as much firsthand information on that operation as I would like to, since I'm not there day to day. But Ellen's report is on the first quarter visitation for the visitor center. And what we're seeing overall, really the bottom line is that in 2018, in the first quarter, we saw 2,806 walk-ins into the visitor center, which is a 17.2% increase over 2017, where we had 2,394. That, of course, the people who walk into the visitor center is not the total number of the people who visit Alpine. We have promoted slightly more the presence of the visitor center on social media. Every week they're handing out a handout of the week's events, and I've been posting that on Facebook and Twitter every week with an acknowledgement of the visitor center, telling people to come in. Now, I don't think that's going to be a 17% increase due to a few Facebook posts. So what that indicates to me is that while our increases last year, just as Megan said, were a historic high, our visitation is actually still trending up. Our collections are down because of the lack of the pipeline workers, but we're actually, in terms of leisure travel, we're looking good over previous years. Does anybody have any questions about the visitor center that I may or may not be able to answer? And then my report on direct promotions on tourism is actually of the time period since my last quarterly report, so it's mid-March to mid-June. This report is a work in progress. I've improved it over last time. Councilwoman Escobedo had asked to see what were the costs of each ad. So I've included the base cost of each ad, and then this is the beginning of a calculation of the impact of what those costs are looking at. There's what's called a rate base for print publications, which is a cost per 1,000 readers. And as I was going through this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different magazines that we advertised in this time period. Online, as I'm looking, so I wound up working with our account reps to find out what's their circulation versus their readership, because every single one of these magazines, they'll give some magical multiplier of readers, because apparently every copy of the magazine gets handed to 8 or 10 different people to read it. And so where I had it, I'm giving the calculations per 1,000 copies of the magazine and per 1,000 supposed readers. What I'll be refining that, so where we really start analyzing for going into our budget next year, is these still aren't quite apples to apples, because you'll see some of the smaller circulation quarterlies, like Texas Music and Authentic Texas. Those are full page ads with a column of advertorial. And so I need to adjust the calculations for Southwest Magazine. It's a 3rd page ad, so that we're looking at what's the full page ad cost. So don't read too much into that specific cost per thousands as to what the actual impact is on these things. I'll present more analysis next quarter and the quarter after that as we go forward. In terms of our digital advertising, I applied the same reasoning towards impressions and engagement. One of the nice things about digital ads is that we know when we say cost per 1,000, we have cost per 1,000 people who actually saw the thing, or it actually came up on their computer screen. Whereas in a magazine, yeah, we have cost per 1,000 of people who have that magazine in the building with them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they read it, and it doesn't necessarily mean they saw our ad. Whereas in the digital, we know that was an impression of our ad. And with the engagement, then we know they also clicked on it. So there's considerably more tracking value to the numbers we get on digital. There's still some more work to do particularly in terms of a Facebook of drilling down, because the numbers you're seeing there are a conglomeration of many, many small ad buys that we do. And we're in a really busy time right now. We have so many summer events. And out of our general operating budget, I try to allocate at least some small dollars to boost the presence of every event that the council has supported through hot tax. And then, in the case of Fiesta del Sol, I allocated a small amount of our funds, and the Alpine Downtown Association elected to do essentially all of their advertising and social media as well. So I actually executed those ads for them as well. So what Megan, what you'll be seeing is another report from Fiesta del Sol with my name on it, but I'll make sure that the proper signatures are on each so you can track which account goes from where. So I'm assisting them in that way. So where I'm going with that is, for end of year, my plan is to really break down all of those individual ads, our targeting by geography and interest, to really track what was successful and what wasn't. Because what you're seeing right now is a big bucket with everything in it on Facebook. Another thing that's been fairly new for us this year is that you'll see under D Magazine, that was our first buy in the Dallas market. And also, have we got any? No, there's a couple coming up, one in Texas Monthly and one in Austin Monthly, where we're doing native content, where we're actually buying sponsored content, as well as in D Magazine, we did they wrote an article about our photo contest, which we just launched this weekend with the Museum of the Big Bend's Photo Weekend, with a photo gallery of photos from the contest. And in conjunction with that, they did an email newsletter. We had ads on their site and things like that to drive people to that. The benefits that I see there are that it's there. It's not just a display ad that we're buying. We are paying for it, but it's under their masthead. It's more of an editorial view, and it also lives on indefinitely, so we get a lot of search engine benefit. We did this a couple years ago for Texas Monthly. We did a top 10 things to do in Alpine, and it's still the second refer to our website from Google. And so that's 2 years later. And so we're looking to seed more of those out. We have a couple of plans. The Texas Monthly will be doing a series of 4 different ads in the late summer. Not ads, but 4 different articles on different subjects about Alpine in the late summer. So that's coming, and it will remain to be seen what our calculations show in terms of the actual result in terms of tracking. Things in general that we've been working on with Jessica's guidance and input. We've identified the meeting market as a new priority. All the activity that I've done in the last 9 years has been towards the individual leisure traveler. And Jessica had identified this. There's a lot of opportunities there in the meetings market. We get a lot of meetings, particularly through Cell Ross, some through the Holland Hotel. We're beginning to work through the visitor center to be a clearinghouse for information about meetings, and we're starting to then put some materials together to more proactively reach out to organizations that hold meetings. So that's something that will be coming up. We're also currently working on clarifying my situation with the city. For the last 9 years, I've been doing most of the job I'm doing now. When Stuart left, of course, I stepped into those shoes as well. The way I'd always done this was to present a proposal for hotel occupancy tax funding for the city's advertising, and I worked against that budget. But since Eric started presenting that budget internally, it sort of obscured my role there, especially in terms of what's the actual job description, which we're working on now, and then an actual contract being in place. I've just worked off the budget each year. So that's in progress. Certainly for next fiscal year, we should have something for more explicit for you all to consider. And let's see. So another piece that I'll be including in my next quarterly budget is the actual statistics for social media activity. I do send it to Jessica every month, and I'm working on refining that format. But what we're seeing right now is Facebook is the dominant point of activity on social media for us, certainly. We have, as of the end of May, we have 25,500 roughly followers on our Facebook page. And we get, I'd say, about 100 a week. I do put a little trickle of money continually through ads to promote those, as well as the posts that we do. But of course, they continually adjust their algorithms to try and prevent people hating them. And and as a result, pages, we have a page that's an entity that's sharing. We're not a person, we're an entity. And so they've continually downgraded the how many of these 25,000 people will see a given thing we share. And so that's where the ad budget comes into play. So we continually trickle those dollars to boost the number of people who actually will see what we post. And we look for those opportunities, a really good video, a landscape photo particularly. I share contest photos all the time. The landscapes will get 3,000, 5,000, 9,000 people seeing them, whereas I share live music performer that's coming through, and it might be 200, might be 50, if we don't actually put money behind it. But that's still by far the most eyeballs that we get on social media. The biggest improvement that we're seeing this year, though, is on Instagram. The numbers are much smaller. We have 3,451 followers, but our activity in terms of likes of the photos that we're sharing and engagement and comments, we had a 285% increase in May over last May in terms of the likes, 425% increase in comments, and sorry, that was in impressions was 285%, likes was 425%, and comments we had a 1,300% increase. So we've had a lot of boosts on Instagram. We did some contests through Austin Monthly, where people had to follow us to enter a contest and win a couple nights at the Hollywood Maverick. Those went really well. So Instagram's on the way up. I don't think I will drag you through any more numbers necessarily unless you have a specific question.
Do you want to talk about the relationship with Justin and Caroline at the lodging?
Oh yeah, that is a really promising relationship that we're building. We have worked in the past in a slight way with the Texas Hotel Lodging Association with Justin Bragel and Carolyn. I don't remember her last name. Sure, let's say that. But Justin came and gave a presentation to about the legal uses of the hotel occupancy tax to our potential grantees this year, and we are looking into. We've decided actually to become. We were an affiliate member where we had some access for questions with their legal team, and every once in a while they might come out for a presentation. But we're increasing our participation with them to full membership, which essentially buys listings for all of our hotels on state. I think it's Travel Text. It's three different websites that they work with through the state and other places. But also it gives us unlimited access to their legal department for any questions that anyone might have about the hotel occupancy tax and its uses. It also gives us pretty free access to their expertise. So currently, one of the other big initiatives that we're working on is to build and strengthen the relationships that we have with our hoteliers. So one of the things that they'll be doing, thinking August, early August, they'll be coming out to give a presentation for our hotels on what our new membership, what they can bring to the table in supporting our hotels directly, and we're hoping to build that relationship so that we can communicate more clearly what we're offering to them, and we can maybe get more statistics readily available to present to you from our hoteliers as well. So that's really promising. They've been really good to work with.
And they'll also come out, I think, 3 additional times throughout the year.
Yes.
With that no cost.
Yeah, as needed. And so we would expect to routinely do an annual presentation for potential grantees of the fund. We can also do presentations specifically if we're heading into budget season and there are questions that the council has about how you have some plans about how you would like to use the fund. We can bring them out to ask those specific questions and give you presentations about the topics that are of interest to you as well.
So Chris, the hot funding applications are open, correct?
They are, that's right. And what's the deadline? It's the end of the July 11th.
July 11th.
That's correct. And they're on cityofalpine.com.
Yep.
They're on the homepage, but they're also under How Do I Apply, and it's on that list. And the policies and procedures that you all approved are in this. To let the media know, they're a pretty dramatic change. A lot of things have tightened up, and so I absolutely encourage anyone who's interested in general, but specifically anyone who has been thinking about applying for funds for an event or project to, as quickly as possible, start reviewing those because it's a fairly tight deadline.
Yeah. And I've met with 2 or 3 already.
Excellent.
To kind of do some one-on-one on answering their questions and how they move forward and requesting the funds and how there's, because we went to that 2-to-1 funding cycle, kind of talking to them and how that needs to work through their budgets as they move through those years if they're awarded
as well as kind of covering some of the upcoming expected additional changes to the statutes related to hotel occupancy taxes that we're going to get there.
Yeah, good.
I don't see the legislature changing their mind and saying, okay, never mind, we're just going to let you do what you want again.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
This is appropriate time. Great report, new to the community. One of the things we identified as well, social media is Facebook has a different population age category. Does that break that down? Do you get a report that breaks down the age categories? Because Instagram is a newer group.
Right. You mean, well, on your page, Facebook does give you analytics.
Yes, sir.
And so they're going to give you generalized demographic information for who sees the different posts. Yes. Is that
Yes.
answer the question? Yeah.
If I may have our marketing person reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Ruth Hico, she's a really good kid.
Certainly.
Because that's an indicator of what's coming through for our needs at the hospital. So, okay.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great report.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions and a comment. First of all, it's impressive, yes, that the Facebook video, we have an impressive number of followers.
Yes.
That's interesting. But it'll be more interesting, we can find out a little bit of the demographics, where it comes from, who is following, and if possible, age groups and
Certainly.
background and so forth, which may lead to consideration of activities. And I have to say, kudos to the general manager, yourself, and all the staff that's involved. And looking at the activities that you guys are contemplating and working on, it's impressive.
Thank you.
I think once all of this is combined and put together, it could lead to a plan that will make Alpine a destination instead of a gateway to other destinations.
Interesting.
Well, and I agree with you. What I find that happens is that we are a destination for a small number of individuals, relatively speaking, and that's probably the way we want to keep it, honestly, because there is quality of life impact to visitation. We want to have as healthy an economy as we can, but there are limits to it. But the way that I view our relationship with the region is that when we work with Brewster County, we speak specifically to people in the state of Texas. Like in spring break, 75% of the walk-ins into the visitor center were from in-state. January and February was closer to 60%. But we decided when I started doing this job that we would target the Texas drive market. Brewster County has a considerably higher budget than the city of Alpine does. They have the funds to target interstate and international visitation, which even though Alpine's not mentioned, over time, that dramatically benefits us because as people build a relationship with the region, of course, we do our part to make sure that they know that Alpine exists and what we have to offer, but they find it. And over time, over repeat visitation, a lot of people find that Alpine's the best fit for them. I was visiting with some friends in Marfa last night and talking to them about the relationship between the two towns. And the hype around Marfa is a huge benefit to Alpine because there's a lot of, Marfa is an amazing place, which has so much to offer, but it's not a perfect fit for everybody. Yet, it's hyped like it's the greatest thing ever for anyone. And so a lot of people come, and it's not a good fit for them. They just bounce right off. They come to Alpine, and a lot of them find that it's a perfect fit for them. So when Marfa, through its just natural PR machine, and Brewster County, through their higher budgets, when they're advertising out much wider range, you're just having the product that we have, which is our central location, but to be perfectly honest, our super friendly and welcoming and laid back environment. Just the people who are here, so many people like to hang out with us. And so,
well, I don't know about you, but I like these guys.
Yeah. And I think in part that we're a little bit bigger. There's a feeling that Alpine didn't have anything to prove, But anyway, so when we speak out to people, of course, actively promoting day trips, and like we're looking at a menu of experiences which include the broader region always, because we shouldn't have to hold them here. We want them to sleep here. We have to, that's the primary thing. We want them to shop here, and then we want them to go all over and explore the Big Bend and keep coming back to sleep here. So that's our goal.
First, thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have no public hearings this evening. The next is the consent agenda, which is minutes, financial reports, department written reports, board appointments. We have one up on there. That's the minutes from the meeting of June 5th, 2018. Would someone on council like to make a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of the meeting as written.
Second.
And there's a second. Since there's no discussion, it's an up and down. Would anyone like to take this off the item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next we'll move into information discussion. We have three presenters tonight with 5 items. Is Kim here tonight? There you are.
I'm not kidding.
I was going to say you're not Kim, but you're Kim. Hey, thank you very much. How you doing today?
My name's James Blair. I'm a member of the Airport Advisory Board. We have a airport runway project in progress right now. The design has been completed and approved, and the bidding and construction should begin in the early part of the new fiscal year. The project will include sealing cracks and seal coating the east-west runway and associated taxiways, reconstructing taxiways for the north-south runway and the ramp, and installing new taxiway lighted guidance signs. That's the project. We have some airport board recommendations to council. We recommend a rule change in section 1 to read: anyone operating a business or commercial business shall report in writing to council the name, tax ID, and description of the business. Anyone using the airport shall follow the city ordinances. Future projects: runway lighting replacement. The runway lighting system at the airport is over 30 years old. It's a direct buried cable and is in constant need of repair to keep it operational. Top priority, we recommend that a letter of interest be sent to Textile Aviation in order that a runway lighting replacement project be included in their future planning and budget. These runway lights are crucial for night operations for air ambulance, border patrol, Texas DPS, and corporate aircraft operations. Once in the TxDOT system, the project will still be 3 to 5 years out. Attached to our outline for your convenience, which she has, is a drafted letter of interest for the runway lighting replacement and a master plan update. Heavy aircraft ramp improvement. Heavy and large aircraft flying in our facility, it is recommended that our ramp area be tested for load bearing capabilities to ensure that our facility meets specifications and requirements. The AWAS is the weather reporting facility for pilots. At the airport facilities and hangar projects expand, using up more property and space, the automatic weather transmission system location is being confined to an area that could possibly give inaccurate information to incoming and outgoing pilots and aircraft. The FAA specification requires that the system be located in an open area. As required by law, we recommend the relocation of this equipment to a more open area as soon as practical. This possibly could be worked in with the runway lighting replacement project. As the life of this equipment is somewhat limited, it could possibly be more practical to install new equipment as opposed to relocating the old. Schedule runway inspections and preventive maintenance and repair. We also recommend that a specific system be in place to require runway and ramp area surfaces be inspected by qualified personnel on a scheduled basis, so that needed maintenance and repair can be brought to the city's attention in an organized manner. I believe Megan has been working on implementing a paving inspection system. Master plan update. Our current airport master plan is dated 1996. FAA funding hinges on our stated current plans. We clearly must have at least a master plan update and have included that request in the drafted letter of interest before you, which we're going to give you. That's it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? James, this is the best report I think we've heard
Thank you,
in a
sir.
long time. And thanks for the work that you and Isabel are doing and the rest of the airport advisory board. On the airport, on the lighting system, the letter that you all drafted, I presume, Jessica, you and Cynthia will take the action with Megan to get that in. Okay. Yeah, and then does this include, I guess it includes all the items, doesn't it? Yeah, so the letter road kind of covers it all to be able to get that into the system. Okay, super. Good, thanks. Yeah. Anything we need to do for you other than send letters out? No? Okay.
Oh, we have a letter of interest for your approval. Recommendation, so we can do that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving to the next item, Judy Ford supposed to give us an update on the Sunshine House. Judy, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good. How's the Sunshine House doing?
We're doing wonderful.
Getting ready to move?
Yes, we are.
Oh, cool.
Just a little excitement in the air. We are continuing to serve the senior adults of Alpine. So I thought I'd bring you a few statistics. In the last 3 months, we've provided 150 homebound people with 8,519 meals. Out of that, the ones that we provided that we don't get reimbursement for was 350 meals. So you can see why we need funds. We had 26 congregate clients that come into the Sunshine House and eat. We served them 1,636 meals, and of those, 421 were paid by the Sunshine House. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting those people on a program, and then sometimes they really don't qualify, but we feed them anyway. In February, we started sending out a sack lunch every Friday with a hot meal. I got a small grant from the Texans Feeding Texans, and I decided that we would do this, but we have to make the sandwiches ourselves to make. I mean, we can't buy things, so we need volunteers. If anybody wants to build sandwiches on Thursday, we have to do about 160 on Thursdays. But this has been a very well-received program by our clients. I was amazed at how many of them would say, we love the sandwiches. You know, we send them a hot meal. Here's a sandwich. And they love the sandwiches. But I've also had a lot of them give me comments like, you know, it was Saturday afternoon and I was hungry and I went in there and got that sack lunch and it just hit the spot. So it's meeting a need that we have here in Alpine. As of March the 31st, we had delivered 567 of those sack lunches, and 60 of those went to our congregate clients. The reason I say that is because the grant that I received only pays for the home delivered meals. So those that we're sending congregates out, we're picking up the cost of those at the Sunshine House. The interesting thing, and this isn't in your notes because I just tallied up the survey yesterday, but we did a survey of our clients. In other words, we sent them a survey and asked them to answer questions and send those back to us.
One of the questions was, during the past month, did you have to choose between buying food and paying rent or utility bills? We had 8 people that said that was the case for them. Another of our questions was, on one or more days during the past month, did you skip meals because you had no food or any way to buy food? And we had 5 people that answered yes to that. So food insecurity is alive and well in Alpine, Texas. So I'm glad that we are able to serve this need that we have here. But we also serve more than meals. I think last time maybe I mentioned that we do a wellness check. Well, 5 times during the past 3 months, we've made what we call not the everyday meal, but because we had a concern about one of our clients that something wasn't right, we did those checks. And one of those individuals was admitted to the hospital, and then another one has been put in a nursing home. Because we're the eyes, we see what's going on. When a client doesn't come to the door to get their meal, we don't just pass it off. The program coordinator calls and makes sure that that individual's okay. Sometimes they just went shopping and they, forgot, or maybe they had a doctor's appointment and they didn't call. But if we don't get a response from them to find out they're okay, we basically go to their house and check on them to make sure they're okay, because we don't want somebody laying on the floor, or one of our clients. Now the exciting news. We're going to be moving to our new building on June the 29th. So the Sunshine House will be closed. We'll close at 1 o'clock on the 28th after all meals are served. On that day, we will serve a frozen meal, our hot meal, and our sack lunch for the weekend. So they'll have food. But the 29th then is the day that we'll be moving all the equipment and everything from the old Sunshine House to the new Sunshine House. And then we will resume our meal delivery on Monday, July the 2nd. If there's any hitches and we can't get a hot meal out, we have frozen meals to back that up. We'll send frozen meals out that day. They don't like the frozen meals. I don't blame them. So we'll try to get hot ones to them. On our congregate people, if we won't give them hot meals, we'll give them a gift card to go somewhere in town and have lunch. The other thing is that once we get in, we're going to resume our bingo, which is such a very, very popular thing for our seniors. And I want to just thank the city for all the support that you've given us all along in serving the senior adults on Alpine. And we look forward to working with you all in the future. Are there any questions about our program?
Judy, thank you so very much.
Thank y'all.
Good luck in the move. Kirsten Moody, you've got 3 items up today. Y'all been busy.
Well, we have been. I'm glad to be here with you all, and I want to thank City Manager and City Secretary for sort of shepherding our very new and inexperienced board through a lot of work these last few months. So any nonsense coming out of this is totally me, not anything from them. So my first time in front of y'all, please be gentle with me. So I do. So I wasn't on the board yet. I think when the parks people were supposed to give their updates. So I have a tiny little update for you guys, just to sort of talk about where we are and what we're doing right now, and then I can move into the items if that's okay.
Great.
So the first thing I want to say is that Alpine really already, even though when we come in, we're looking for what we can do to make things better. We do recognize that there are an awful lot of good things in the parks already in Alpine, and this was brought home to me in a couple of ways recently. One was I know a couple of y'all knew about this, we had a woman from the Extension Service in Dallas come down and give us a presentation. She's a specialist with parks, city parks. And when we took her around the night before the presentation to us, she, things that we thought, oh, she's going to think we need to do this differently, or this doesn't look good in her eyes, or whatever. She was just really excited about a lot of the things that we have going in the parks here, especially a lot of things at Coconut Park, the fact that we were able to have the skate park and the dog, all these things. She kept saying, oh, they've taken that out of this city park, or this place or that place, and especially the pool. Something that I think a lot of us growing up here took for granted, that pool
would keep going. A lot of little towns like us apparently have gotten rid of those because they are so hard to maintain, which I know that y'all know the funding for that. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was last night I was watching with my dad. I'm from here, and he and I were watching a DVD that I had just put together of all of the 8mm film that he had taken from high school. And one of the shots was of us at Coconut Park in Easter. I was like 5 or 6, and we used to always have an Easter egg hunt. I don't know if they still do that. It was really fun when we were little. And in my mind, Coconut Park always looked like it does right now, where the trees were big and the grass was really green. And I looked at that video, and I couldn't believe what a horrible, desolate place it was. So we have made a lot of progress, I think, in the last 40 years, 45 years, in what we do at the parks. And I think a lot of that's due to, what the city management has done and the city government, and then also the park staff, who I think take a lot of pride in the fact that it looks as good as it does in many of the parks. So I wanted to start with that. And then another really positive thing I think we've got going now, and I know that y'all will agree with this, is we've got the Friends of the Park group, Big Good Parks. Big Good Parks and Recreation for Kids, who started at this year, except like 4 or 5 years ago.
July 2014.
July 2014. Since then, they have, I'm going to get this out to y'all. Can I hand things out? Is that sure what I can do? They raised over $140,000 for us in the parks. And they put together this document that shows how much and who gave it and to recognize that they've done a huge part of the work. Especially with the improvements. I mean, the city has a big parks budget for things, for maintenance and things like that, which do cost a lot. But for improvements, they've sort of shouldered that for us for the last several years. As the parks budget has sort of in the last 4 or 5 years, sort of every year is a little smaller in that area of new things for parks. Understandably, because I mean, we were kind of working through a whole lot of problems, and aside from just the debt, but the sort of issues that we've had, so it's understandable. But I'm hoping that at this point we're heading into an era where we can do a little bit more in terms of new things in the parks. So that's where our board is looking right now. There are a lot of free things too that we can do in the parks that we hadn't known about. I think actually our new city manager knows an awful lot about some of those, having experience in the parks, and so she had even done some of the things that this extension agent was talking to us about that I hadn't even thought of. So that's exciting, and we can still. I think there's a lot of room here still to get donations, in-kind donations. We have an awful lot of construction and things like that. People here who are really generous, and I think would be happy to help us in some way. But I was at dinner last night with one of my friends whose stepfather is the one who put in the new cement track, the concrete track at Medina Park. And he said, "Oh yeah, I just want to let y'all know that I'm very willing to paint all the benches that are, flaking off paint. If y'all give me the paint, we'll do the work." So things like that I think are possible. Okay, before I sort of get into these, and I'll do that however y'all want me to. So I guess I should preface by saying we realize as a board that parks are not in any city going to be the #1 priority of what people have to do. I mean, everybody's got funding, sewers and water and police, and there are all these kind of things that we all know you must have these things in order to have a city function, and that parks are not going to be in that very, very top list. But we're hoping that they'll be recognized as a priority. Because they do give a lot to the citizens in different ways, and the local economy with people coming in just to visit, but then also to stay if they have small kids, to look for parks in their neighborhoods and places that they can go. So I'm hoping that now we can focus on parks a little bit in the coming budget. And now, again, as I said, I'm super new, so some of the stuff that y'all have seen that we've submitted this time, I don't know with all of them if there are monies at the end of the year that some of this could go to, or if it's all a budget next year thing, or if some of it's a budget 2 years from now, or we need that guidance from you guys too. We haven't had this interaction. how would y'all like me to proceed with this?
So you've got three items that want to just kind of walk through,
Sure.
you know, in terms of the equipment and burning the stickers off. So that's the cost associated with that.
Yeah.
You've got the movies in the park, and then, you know, the splash pad. I think the challenge that the council is we've got a budget right now. The question is, as we look forward, we've already talked about some potential excesses that might be available.
Yeah.
I'm sure the world will come in and say, hey, there's always good opportunity to consume those funds.
Absolutely, I'm sure, yes.
We're about to go into a budget cycle here. These are all good items put on for council to consider.
To think about, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very much the least expensive, I think, of any of these is the burning the stickers. And if I have a pet project, I guess this is it. I mean, I don't really, I kind of just want them to be whatever everybody else needs them to be in town to sort of be that conduit. But as I said, I grew up here, and just the bane of my existence as a child was the goat heads and the stickers in all the parks. You know, especially Baines, I remember. I mean, Covern's always been a little bit nicer, but Baines, Medina's really nice now. And again, I think the park staff has done a great job. It is so much better at Baines now than it was when I was growing up. You know, it was just dust and broken glass, honestly, when I was growing up. It's wonderful now. In some parts of it, but there are still a lot of stickers there. So in the parks themselves, but then also in a lot of the practice fields across town, what I'm hearing is that the coaches or the sponsors, the coaches, I guess, sort of want to get one field ahead of another because of the lack of goat heads in one field. You know, I just feel like it would be nice if it weren't like that for them, if they were able to sort of go anywhere. Anyway, so public entities have done this where they've managed to get rid of the goat heads. They do burn them off sometimes, which works pretty well. It's a constant thing because, as you know, they blow in from everywhere. But if you can get a handle on it at first, I think that would be a good way to tackle it. So there's a program that you can use. You can apply this. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. You'll have it in front of you. But
so if you kind of looked at getting rid of the goat heads and burning the stickers, what's it add up to?
Well, so it depends on. Okay, so the tool itself, right? The tool itself to do the burning is about $60.
Okay.
The propane dolly that goes with each tool, it holds a 40-pound, 10 gallons of it. That's about $50.
Yeah.
And then a 40-pound is like a 40-pound, a 10-gallon thing of propane is like $80, right? So there's that. I don't know how many propane tanks that takes to get through the stickers. I mean, that I don't know. And then the pre-emergent, there's also a cost with the pre-emergent that you can put down. You know, there's a small cost, but there's a cost there.
So what would help us if you kind of did the math? And
Yep.
says we need X amount of tanks,
Yeah.
X amount of tools, and X amount of pre-emergent, and that all adds up to Y.
Right. Okay. So if we were going to go, say, like into next year's budget, I mean, that would just yeah. Okay. And so
So think about it in perspective. City council has got to worry about how do we allocate $12.5 million.
right.
Okay, so we're just trying to figure out, you know, and currently there's a park budget of X. I don't recall what that is, but you're going to want to say, okay, here's the sorts of things we're looking for. So
Yeah.
the council can look and say, here's our ranks priority wise, and here's what the cost you got and the other costs, and we can make a decision and we'll sort through that.
Let's see if and then would that go in? I'm sorry, I'm not saying right. Would that go in as like a separate line, or just like go into the budget? I mean, into like maintenance budget.
The supply,
Yeah.
the supply line item for the parks.
Can I help you out a little bit?
Absolutely.
So about 40, one of the things that propane tank that you were talking about, the 40-pound one, will cover about 1,000 square feet. So one of the things, and we should be running them about 3 times a year to get a handle on them. So they like right as we get out of winter, and then kind of halfway through the year, and then fall. And so that's how they recommend it. So the only other missing number with that would be how many thousands of square feet,
Yeah.
you know, do we need per park?
That's all we need.
So, but one tank will cover about 1,000 square feet.
Do that math, that'll help.
Okay. And so I'll get that to you for sure. Do I get it to the city?
Yep.
Great. Anything else on stickers?
And this will be a reducing budget, right? So as we get the handle, we'll go ahead and totally use less and less per year.
You're right. Okay, so the next one is this Movies in the Park. We were trying to think as a board of something that we could do to offer the public that's relatively inexpensive, that we get to keep, the asset from most of what we're spending. It's not, it doesn't just go. And it wouldn't matter what happens with the coming master plan, the parks master plan that we've got going. So it's not as though that would come back and say, no, it'd be a terrible idea to go and make the park. It wouldn't matter with that. So that's where this item came from. And y'all got the page in the back with the,
everything read.
yeah. So with the different sizes, so what I'm asking for is for the equipment that would cost, that we would have to use to run the movies in the park. You need a screen, the DVD player, the projector, the mixer, and the sound system. And you can get that as a package from one of these companies, or you can get it for, it looked like about $1,000 less if you do them individually. And one of the companies was able to walk me through exactly what we would need, the models and everything, which I thought was really nice of them. So that, and then there are always licenses that we would have to pay for with the movies. A lot of people think there are a lot of movies in the public domain. There really aren't very many movies in the public domain. So that's like usually a few $100s, $200, $300, $400 for each one. So this item we had put forward, actually one of our meetings a couple times ago, and we put it forward just in case it would work for this summer, for 3 weeks in this summer, one night a week, one Friday each week, between when the theater of the Big Bend ends and before football season starts, so those 3 Fridays. So that's what we have proposed here.
So the way in which to work that, if you're trying to work in the summer, you need to get one of us up here to come sponsor it and say, okay, that makes sense to go do. And then we'll bring it to council. Because you're talking about allocation, it's going to be a reallocation of money for this year.
Okay.
For next year, if you're talking about looking at buying equipment, that's the opportunity to look and say, can you put money in to buy it? Then you just got to worry about what it costs to go run a movie that will display to X numbers of people.
Right. Okay. Okay. And so I'll get with the city manager or the city secretary after this to figure out how to
take the best shot and go want to come talk.
Okay.
Okay.
I just looking at like to do this for this year, probably is not too realistic because we're already kind of at the end of the fiscal year. We're trying to wrap it all up to move into the next one. But I do want to say that the investment of this equipment, moving forward, I want to say that the screens, depending on what you get, you're going to be replacing probably every 3 to 5 years, depending on how often it is. But the idea of doing, movies in the park is a great summer activity. It's something that it's an inexpensive program that the city can provide to the public. But it also provides an opportunity to have events or an activity for the kids when they're out of school in the winter, because we have the Civic Center, and it's something that we can do kind of in the winter time. Hey, come here, see a movie during the winter while you're on winter break, or for families maybe that don't travel for spring break because they've got baseball practice instead of vacation on their mind. But to have the equipment and be able to offer that type of program, it is relatively inexpensive when you do kind of like $1 to participant number, and then being able to offer maybe like fundraising opportunities to say like the baseball teams to say, hey, you sell concessions and you raise money on the different movie nights. It does provide opportunities at that also. And I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's realistic for this year, this summer, but definitely I would like to see it proposed in the budget for next year.
Okay. Great. Okay, and then the last one is the splash pad. Oh, yes.
Just a quick comment on the movies in the park. You might want to talk to Don Wetterer at the library, because they were going to do movies at the library, but the acoustics in the AEP room turned out not to be conducive to it. And so as far as movie licensing, I think they've already jumped that hurdle. Okay. I know they don't have a blow-up screen because they didn't need it inside the building, but they may also have that audio-visual input.
I'll call him. Thank you. Yeah, anything like that you think of, let me know. I'll call. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so splash pad. I know y'all have heard a lot about splash pad over the past many years. It's the thing that I've heard most from talking to parks, to people who are interested in improving the parks, people who have kids. And it seems like splash pad is a thing that keeps coming up. So I might actually, Ekta, do you want to come visit about this one? Sure. I think Ekta is, I'm sorry, Dr. Escobar is the one who has done every bit of the background work for this and has been, she's the one who everybody is talking to about this. So I would, if you're comfortable.
Oh, yeah, sure. So a little bit of background. When we first started the Parks nonprofit a little less than 4 years ago, the first couple things we did was we did some surveys online and in person, going to neighborhoods and up and down streets to kind of see what everybody wanted. We didn't really have, we had a master plan that wasn't particularly pointing us to a specific direction on how to improve our parks. And so we kind of wanted everyone's opinions. And so one of the things that was an overwhelming majority of what people wanted of all ages and all areas of Alpine was a splash pad. We have trouble getting enough lifeguards for the pool. It limits our hours for the summer on our pool. Right now our pool hours are like 12 to 5. My little one, my toddler naps from 12:30 to 3. So it's like right in the middle of pool time. By the time I get him up and get a snack, the pool's closed. So having a splash pad that could be on a timer that was open for extended hours, extended seasons, we don't need to pay for a lifeguard, all kept coming back as positives. And so, and not just for kids, but people of all ages could enjoy the splash pad. And so it was something we started looking into more and more. And that's where this kind of began. We informally reached out to a couple local foundations who are very interested. They actually drove down here. They're West Texas foundations. They drove out to Alpine, took a look at what we have at our pool and the old kiddie pool that's been broken and useless for many, many years. And they were kind of surprised that we don't have a splash pad by now, even something small. And so in terms of cost versus benefit, it seemed very positive to them as well as something that they would like to contribute towards. The one thing, of course, that they would want to see is the city putting out some of its own money in terms of matching funds before, they put up some money on their end too. So this seems like something that a lot of different people from a lot of different places in West Texas are wanting Alpine to move forward, including the citizens themselves. And so in terms of functionality, the best place seemed to be next to the current city pool. And that's kind of where we brought that whole thing to the Parks and Rec board for Alpine to talk about. Is there anything else? No, stay here.
Okay.
I have something for you.
I'll sit next. You're the one who actually has the information. Do y'all have questions?
So just from a splash pad standpoint.
Sure.
There's certainly a permanent facility. Are there some lower cost ways to kind of edge into it just to make sure our grandkids, we got everything else.
Right.
There's no place the kids love it.
So yeah, so in terms of cost, the best way to probably move forward with this, and I know you've had experience with other places that have splash pads, the majority of the money that would go towards splash pads is actually the underground plumbing. That's, the water filtration, if we're going to reuse water versus a flow through where it just ends up in the sewage. All of the underground stuff is where the vast majority of the costs are going to go. So the initial amount of money that we have to put into a splash pad, a majority of it's going to go where no one can see it, unfortunately, which makes it a little harder for kind of citizens to rally and fundraise towards something because it's not something, that they can see. But a lot of the very basic kind of pop-up sprinklers and that type of thing, which is very low cost in terms of what's on top of the cement, will get us a good start. And then what actually most of the splash pad companies do is the place where the sprinklers install are actually interchangeable. So let's say, like Talent Roofing wants to donate a $5,000, big mushroom piece or something, with their plaque on it or whatever. It can then be replaced on that sprinkler head. So we can upgrade as time goes on and as people, local citizens or businesses are invested in it. But the kind of chunk of money that we would need to coordinate with other people and really raise is that underground plumbing.
Before y'all have any other parts, anything, directives, anything you need us to, well, in fact, I do have for you, this is my last one, just to hand out. This is our contact information, all of us. So, if you think of parks things. If y'all have parks questions.
Any other
Thank y'all.
questions, Kirsten?
I do have a question. I'm just curious as to, like, the restrooms, are they?
We were unfortunately unable to get, the board was unable to get the information I think necessary in at the right time to get that on your agenda for tonight for a discussion item. We've got it, our park board is having a meeting tomorrow night, and again, we have it as an item, so we hope that we will be able to send that back if y'all are open to it, and we can get you that. But yes, definitely that's another, the bathrooms at Coconut is what we're talking about. Another item that a lot of people are interested in.
So,
How often does your board meet?
Monthly, we meet monthly. We meet every fourth Thursday, except tomorrow we're meeting on Wednesday. Monthly, every fourth Thursday at 5:30 here, unless this is crowded and under busy or something else.
So I just have a question and a comment.
Okay.
One. It's okay. I noticed on the list that I'm delinquent in filling a vacancy for a member of the park board.
Well,
So,
I don't think that's your fault. I think that's my fault that I haven't gotten to you with a
okay,
suggestion.
that's just, I'm looking for suggestions, okay, just make sure. Okay. And the last comment I made, you all are active as all get out, so thank you.
Oh, thank y'all for saying that. We're a little bit worried that we're trying not to do wrong things, but we're trying to do good things.
You're doing good things. You all are the ones that we rely on about the parks, and while we struggle with having the 14 parks in the city and how to work and maintain all that stuff with balanced budgets, we look to you all for guidance. And
please let us know in ways that we can help.
You just help a lot, in my view.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so great information discussion. It's time to move into action items, and we've got 4 of those to consider tonight. The first one, Jessica, you want to walk us through that one?
Sure. The item is to discuss, consider, and take action to move the July 3rd, 2018 City Council meeting to July 10th. July 3rd is the Tuesday before July 4th, which is a holiday, and so the suggestion is to move it till the following week for those that will not be in town for the July holiday.
That's all. I have a motion.
I know that we moved the meeting date from July 3rd to July 10th.
Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second to that. Is there any discussion? So the only discussion I'll make is I will not be here on July 10th. So I'm already planned to be out of town. So I kind of look first and third Tuesdays, and we are going to be in Baltimore. My wife actually has a medical appointment that day, so we cannot be here. So that's my input. Any other discussion? I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? Passes 4-0. The next city council meeting will be on July 10th, and everyone will enjoy the 4th of July week. The next one is an item that I have, discuss and consider to take action with the closure of the platted but non-existing road extension of Brown east of Harrison Loop Road, so that Paul Tanksley can purchase property adjacent to his property, and Eric and his wife can purchase, the Pauls can purchase the property adjacent to the property at 801 North Third. If you look in your packet, there's actually 3 documents there. There's a Google map, which actually shows highlighted in red the property next to the Tanksleys and next to Paul's home. It's interesting half that road, the Paul's already owned, is part of the deed. And so as we work through the whole Coconut Heights area, this is one of the items. And so they would like to close that, and they're in the process of getting a appraisal for the land values so they can come back to council with a recommendation to change ownership. So this action is to approve the closure of the platted road. So with that as a background, is there a motion to support that?
That we close the platted but not existing road.
Okay.
Brown and East.
No second.
And we have a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Thank you. Motion passes. Okay. On the next item is to discuss and take action to approve the proposed 2018 budget calendar for 2018-19. And Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is the calendar minus the dates prior to today that was presented to council a couple months ago.
Yep.
We did get some feedback and we did have to tweak some of the dates. So with council's approval, this will be the schedule that will follow going into the budget process.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the budget calendar?
I move we approve the budget calendar.
And there's a second. Now we can have discussion. You like to raise a question?
Yes. I noticed on here that there's public dates, June 30th is the deadline to submit requests for funding. But we discussed earlier, it's actually July 11th.
You are absolutely correct. Yes. We need to change that.
July 11th.
So July 11th is the correct.
Okay. So that is an amendment to the document. Any other discussion? So just from because everyone doesn't get a chance to see this, what this says is from a public data standpoint, the July 17th, the budget is presented to council, and then on July 17th, there will be a city council workshop on the proposed revenue and expenditures for the enterprise funds. On July 24th, there'll be a workshop for revenue expenses for the general fund. And then there's a contingency if needed July 31st for a final workshop day. So I think, from a media standpoint, it's important to get that out to everyone so they've got the opportunity to come participate. We heard some proposals from the representatives of the Parks Board earlier. We heard some input from the Airport Advisory Board. And there are so many other things that we need to go on board that it's a great opportunity for everyone to come on in and take a look and participate in that discussion. So we look forward to that participation. And then public hearings are on August 6th on the proposed budget. The challenge of public hearings, just as a reminder, we as City Council cannot respond at public hearings. We listen, we can take in all the notes we want, but we cannot respond. So the real opportunity to have a discussion with council about budget is actually at the workshops. Those are exchanges.
Actually, workshops are not exchanges either.
They're not?
No.
So we got to talk about that because we need an opportunity to have discussion, in my view. So, just in the past, workshops, we have had discussions. Okay, so let's talk about that. But I think it's an opportunity because otherwise, then we create a situation where we can't have a dialogue. That says it has to occur outside of council chambers, and we're not supposed to do that either. Okay, so maybe at the let's see, at the July meeting, we can talk about what that might look like.
You could do a public meeting, maybe prior to the 31st, or maybe the 31st becomes an actual public meeting in more of a town hall type of setting.
Well, I would think that would make sense. What do you think?
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll amend it to make July 31st a town hall public meeting. That is the opportunity for exchange, so that we can listen and take input in Then the final input will be the public hearing on August 6th, and we would adopt the budget on the 21st. And then we have the public hearings on the proposed tax rates on the 27th. Then we adopt the tax rate on September 4th, and then the public hearing on proposed tax rate, if needed, on the 10th, and the final date to adopt the tax rates. Good. Okay.
I do have a question for the council. I am accustomed to holding the budget workshops in conjunction with a regularly scheduled council meeting, so that if needed, the council could actually recess and then continue the meeting the following day. So I was told that's not something that you all normally do. Is that something you'd like to consider for this year? And that way we kind of already block off Tuesday and Wednesday, whether you need Wednesday or not. You wouldn't have to, but it also kind of reduces the actual number of workshops that you have to do. And then we just have the appropriate staff available for the departments being presented during that time.
So can you give a little bit more? So, you know, right now we have a council meeting will be on the 10th and the 17th of July. Are you proposing that on the 17th of July we have present the budget to council and the workshop with council? Okay. And city council meeting. So it'll be a marathon.
Well, which is why you can recess it and start the next day.
Okay, so that's the other part of the discussion. Being available on the 17th and 18th is what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, so well, everyone wants to look and say, you know, the 17th and 18th is kind of block that out.
And then the same for the 24th. So it'd be really the 24th and 25th.
Okay, what's council think about that?
I think that's fine.
I'm not a real fan of doubling up on this stuff, but sometimes the council meeting can be long enough.
Well, that's what you seem to be consistent.
We can, split it up. Budget can be a workshop, you be involved too.
Right.
And then if we have a lengthy council meeting,
we're going to try to do all that on the 10th.
yeah, as long as we've got the wiggle room, we can, make it continue on the next day.
Right.
So we won't be here midnight.
Okay, so
it would, and actually it could start as early as, you could go 24 hours and start it at 5:30, or you could just continue in the morning and do it in the morning.
yeah, key will be if someone's got, some commitments in that next morning.
And Lucy works.
Yeah. So that'll be a challenge. So what's the earliest Lucy you'd be available? On the 18th and the 25th in terms of looking at that next day. Yep.
We can do it early in the morning on either days.
Okay. So.
And we can decide that when we get closer to it.
Okay. So we've got some kind of that pro forma in terms of looking at dates, the opportunity to extend it 17th, 18th, 24th to the 25th, and we just talked about the 31st being a public meeting workshop. Okay. So with that as background, we have a motion on the floor to approve the budget calendar as proposed and as we just discussed. Any further discussion?
Point of order. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have to do this in two pieces since we changed it? We've got to approve the change and then approve the.
But that's fair enough. So would someone like to codify? Well, that's okay. Would someone like to codify what we just talked about into an amendment to the motion?
You could do as stated. As stated.
As stated, yeah, that's right. Correct on that before.
Okay, so as stated, we have an amendment. As stated, is there a second to that amendment? Okay, we have a second to that amendment. So we're going to vote on the amendment first. Okay, then we'll go back and do the final. All in favor of the amendment as stated, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? I see none, so it passes. Let's go to the primary motion. All in favor of the motion as amended, please raise your right hand. Okay, Any opposed? No, because you all said yes, so passed. Yes, okay. On to the next item, to discuss and consider the action to approve the proposed budget policy. City manager.
This is the long-awaited budget policy. This is where, this is your opportunity to provide guidance to administration moving forward into the budget, aside from the actual process, but the opportunity to set certain parameters when it comes to revenue and reserve funds, as well as your expectations of what you want to see in that budget presentation. So of course you have some that are determined by statute, some that are determined by charter. It kind of puts them all together so that everybody knows what those expectations are.
So has everyone had an opportunity to go through it, read it, understand it, have questions? Is there a motion relative to the proposed budget policy?
Move to approve budget policy.
Okay, and there's a second. So now discussion, comments, feedback.
So I guess I'll just kind of pick it up here.
Yep.
Some of the highlights of this, of course, again, the basic stuff. Your charter, the statute determine when the preliminary budget has to be presented by council. Statutes also determine when it has to be adopted by, so those are restated in here. But if you go to page 5, setting charges and fees, this will be the first year of a biannual review of all the fees. Kind of talk to Meg, he's waiting for a full table from all of the departments of the fees that they're charging so that we can look to see if any need to be adjusted, and then to find out when the last time was they were adjusted. So that'll kind of be a change in there. It'll also include any new fees. So in kind of reviewing where you're at with your fees, we determined that there are some fees that the gas department is charging and has always charged even when they were the corporation before, but were not included in our ordinance. And so that needs to be added into the ordinance so that everything is consistent. The building services department, there were some fees that they were charging but weren't in the ordinance, and then there are fees in the ordinance that they weren't charging. So we want to make sure that all that is consistent as well. Animal control has asked also to have some of their fees adjusted. And all these fees have to be adopted by council before we can implement and collect them. And so what we've asked Nick to do is to look at an ordinance for a master fee schedule. Instead of reviewing each ordinance individually, you just kind of just review the fee schedule and update that biannually instead of all the ordinances. The collection we've kind of already covered because we've already kind of accepted that contract with the firm to do collections. But this part in here kind of really says that you're going to be receiving regular reports on collections also. To know, like one of the things that we were talking about today, Megan and I, is kind of where we're at with sanitation fees and the amount that currently is showing uncollected, and kind of provide you with those updates on those, where we're at with those collections and things like that. There's page 7 brings your capital improvement plan into the budget process, including a 3-year implementation schedule. You've kind of got one already that sets it out over a period of 5 years, but sometimes some of these projects need longer for implementation than what's within that 5 years. So this kind of brings in that implementation also. You're setting this aside and it's maybe year 1 of a long-term implementation. So you've got the capital improvements, cost estimates, methods of financing, and these will only be for projects greater than 50,000. The rest of them will be incorporated into regular M&O. The next section, operating contingency, is something new. This is to set aside a minimum of 3% of operating revenues as a contingency fund, not your reserve, but a contingency line item for other unexpected expenses that may come up, to be implemented again over a 3-year period. So this coming fiscal year, you'll budget 112. The following, you'll add another 12, and the following, you'll add another 12, so that you're maintaining 3% in a contingency line item. And then it talks about the reserves, also kind of the same thing, that we're going to try to hit specific numbers of percentages, again being implemented in a 3-year period. So you want to make sure that you not only have a contingency in your general fund, but you actually have a reserve set aside that is equal to 3 months of operating expenses. If you do go through some kind of natural disaster or other emergency, that gives you some funds to start rebuilding after a disaster. And then that just kind of carries over. It goes into an investment fund, but it's specifically for that type of reserve in your general fund account. For the most part, everything else follows what you have set out already in your charter and in other ordinances and statutes. Those are kind of the big things in the policy that will be new for you all to see, or a little different this year.
The only question I have, Jessica, is under the operating contingencies approval by the city manager. You know, that's about $40,000.
Yes.
Yeah, so that seems to be pretty substantial without coming back to council.
Well, I'm already limited in what my approval, I already have an approval limit,
Which is
25.
So yes, so there's a lot of like checks and balances to this. The 400,000 is to set it up, but departments have to go to the city manager to even get approval for the expense. If it's in the budget, it's already approved, then it's okay. If it's not in the budget and it's not been talked about, 25,000, Jessica automatically has to go back to council for approval and then to make the determination of where the money's coming from. So it kind of just establishes the fund. All the other criteria are already established through ordinances, charter, prior ordinances passed by council.
To put limitations on really how I can spend it. But I guess a good example would be, like, we're looking at the transportation study, and where is that funding going to come from? Well, we're going to have to pull it out of the street line item. This kind of allows a line item to say, well, we don't have to pull it from anyone's budget, we can grab it from this line.
You know,
Which would go before council.
yeah, so I think contingency is exactly the right thing to go do. Just from a mechanical standpoint, contingency, as the language talks about, you know, unforeseen expenditures. And so you can have 3 or 4 unforeseen expenditures that now could add up to a couple $100,000 by the time we're all the way through. So I'm just trying to understand the mechanism in terms of coming back to council for that. Is that going to be, you almost like to say, hey, that line item probably ought to be represented in the budget, so we at least understand where it's at. My view is you need flexibility to do things. There's no question about that. It's just, how do you have to check and balance the board? That's all. So.
Yeah, well, I think that checks and balances again comes back to, I'm already limited to what I could approve on my own without coming to council. And if it ends up being a capital purchase, it's going to have to come back to council. So I really see it more as, council, we need to do this study, or we need to fix this with the streets or repair this equipment. It's going to come to you all probably 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about the nefarious things that have happened before where people.
And the next guy.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Yeah. So, and I don't blame you, because you always have to to set some parameters.
Yeah.
You don't want to handcuff somebody, but you also want to prevent, kind of unlimited risks.
Yep.
And it's subject, each year the council can review this policy and say this year we want to reduce it to 1, or this year we want to reduce it to 2. We started at 3 because 3 seemed kind of standard with other cities in that line item. As far as where that line item falls, it's going to fall under non-departmental budget.
I like the idea of running into occasionally at the Howland Hotel, running into Ranger Vitals and saying, oh, much rather have it there than in this room.
The other is on item 10, the reserves. So we're talking about 3 months expenditures. Is there a strategy about how to report that, given 2 months of expenditures is roughly $3 million? Yeah, and so this says we're going to go create that.
Yeah.
And it says it's going to be implemented over a 3-year period, so that's $1 million a year. That's 10% of our budget is going to be taken right off the top.
It's tough.
I guess given my inclination is, I don't know that we can afford to do that, and I would not be inclined to adopt the budget policy until I understand the budget. I understand the strategy, don't get me wrong. I'm just worried about, we had a $12.5 million budget this year. We're talking about, actually, yes, it's $3 million, so we're talking about $1 million is going to come right off the top next year. And unless we have $1 million in reserves, you would not find me support that.
Well, you don't have it now. So I guess the thing is maybe we kind of reduce it and we can work maybe into a 5-year implementation. I guess my concern is you don't have a general fund reserve to recover from an emergency or disaster if it happened next week. That money, you don't have that. So we need to build that up. You don't have natural disasters on a regular basis, but I guarantee you it just takes one to realize, oh, I wish we had set aside something for it.
You're not getting any argument about the concept. It's the implementation. This says 3 years. This says if we were to pass this today, $1 million is done for the budget next year. $1 million. So,
I mean, and again, we put that in because that was kind of like standard.
I understand, yeah.
But if council's more comfortable, we can do it over a 5-year and then kind of adjust what that number would be, looking historically at what your revenue has been to project forward.
I'd be happier with 5 years. Because like you said, it's 10% of the budget floating right out of the gate. Elongate that process a little bit. Perhaps it could always be changed again.
Well, and then if you have excess revenues, you can add it in there and it builds it up, and then you're not really looking at it.
And this city's come a long ways from having $2 million worth of bills you can't pay to actually having money in the bank. So all that's good news, What's the excess we have right now? If you were to project, Megan, at the end of the year, how much money do you think could be available?
Across all of the enterprise
that could fulfill this reserve?
No, just general fund.
Just general fund, based on our current conditions, probably half.
So at $500,000 over 5 years, you're talking $600,000 a year. We'd have to carve out $100,000 out of next year's budget to be able to accommodate that. I'm just trying to do the back of the envelope. Does that make sense? Because and so I'm sitting in my chair. I don't get to make any motions tonight. I can make a comment, which I'm happy to do. Is there anyone who wants to amend the motion as presented thus far?
So do we want to change that timeline?
That's the question.
What's the amendment? I think that's 5 years. Yeah, I'll make that motion.
So you'd modify, I'll put words in your mouth. You'd modify section 10 reserves to implement that over a 5-year period.
exactly what I was gonna say.
Now we go. Okay, Counselor, what did you say, modify 10?
So modify section 10 reserves to change the implementation from a 3-year period to a 5-year period, beginning with the passage of policy. So we have a amendment on the floor. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second.
So we have a second to the amendment. Are there any other discussion items before we go to vote on the amendment and the policy? Hearing none, that I would call for the question on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment passes. So a motion to approve the proposed budget policy as amended. Please all signify if you agree by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 4-0. Okay, so that's the end of the action items. It's now the opportunity for council member comments and answers. And since it always tends to be Maria or myself start, Lucy, why don't you start?
All right.
Oh, she's got a list.
Right, it's a long one. No. Our town hall meeting that we had on June the 7th went very, very, very well. We had quite a bit of people there. We actually had Rick Lotus, Stephanie Elmore, Judge Gano, Tim Pierce, Chief Russell Scout, of course, our city manager, Jessica, and our building and service department. Victor was there, and so was Patsy. I don't know. We had a really good discussion on public safety and of course on the illegal dumping and cleaning. Victor's department did extremely well in explaining everything to us and to everybody that was there. I thought it was the greatest meeting that we've had. Even with our second one, it was very well represented by different people. So we've already had people asking us when our third one is.
Good. Thanks, Vince. Well, thank everybody for being here, and especially the ones that hung in for the entire meeting. Thank you very much. And I don't have anything else to say. Very well.
Okay. As well, thank everybody for being here, and since we won't see you until July, the best of the 4th of July celebrations for this year, and also an invitation to the Fiesta del Barrio festival that's going to be taking place at Murphy and 10th Street on June 30th. And the theme would be family, friends, and neighbors united, or reunited. There'll be plenty of food booths and our crafts and music and dancing. And so it's actually an educational, cultural event of what Alpine has to offer. And of course, everybody's invited to come down to the fiesta.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming out, and there were some great presentations. Thanks for taking the time to do that.
Great. And thanks for the tonight, leading the meeting. In addition to Fiesta del Barrio coming up, Fiesta del Sol coming up also in summer solstice in the same area, which from my standpoint is great to see all the activity going on over Murphy Street. It really helps, unite and bring the community together. So I think it's terrific. We now have the next item on the agenda is go into the executive session. So would someone like to make a proposal?
We go to executive session at this point.
Okay. And we have 2 items in executive session to talk about the contract status performance of the city attorney and to talk about the city manager 6-month review and evaluation. All in favor of going to executive session, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are now going to we'll take a 5-minute break. We started 15 minutes for the hour. And thank you all for participating. You're welcome to come back if you want later on. You just got to know what you have to do. Okay, well, we're gonna follow, so we'll use with a big hand, it's a 9 on that. On that line.
No, do you want this?
Hey, James, thanks. Good to see you.
And I got that letter to Jessica.
Oh, super, thank you. Good. This is your baby? Hi. So you're the youngest, eh? Ah. Oh, cool. Good. Where's your hair? Okay.
So now he's doing an internship at 70.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
So he's doing, with the plus? Yeah. It's an internship for months, right?
And what do you do? Besides intern?